It's compulsive. It's looking for solace or peace or sense of self outside of ourself. That's the symptom. There's much deeper stuff that is the cause, the root. And obviously that's how recovery is achieved, is to be willing to be on this journey of self-exploration and dig into these things, which you guys know is not always a fun journey, but it's a necessary journey if we want to change, if we want to grow. Um, Drinking, or you could fill in the blank. Compulsive behavior is what we use to cover up, right? We think it's protecting us from the junk. I think if you live long enough, you get to a point where we've denied or we've minimized our junk for so long that it's easy to think, I recognize I have this compulsive behavior, but really, there's really nothing much to look at. Everything else seems to be fine. I don't know what it is. I just am compulsive. And that's what denial looks like. The reality is it's all still there, unless we've ever, deliberately, intentionally dealt with it, uncovered it, processed it, healed it, let go of it, or at least learn how to manage it. It's still driving, so much of our decision making. There doesn't have to be this correlation, like, oh my gosh, I'm distraught because I'm thinking of this thing that happened when I was 13. Therefore, I want to drink. It doesn't work like that. But that's really what we're thinking when we try to excuse it away. There's really nothing to look at. It's, even in early recovery, we'll say, "Oh, I'm not even thinking about drinking anymore, so I'm not worried about relapse." And that's a person who will not take steps to avoid relapse because they think they're cured, and then they relapse. So denial is number one on the defense mechanism list, and it's overwhelming. And of course, everybody has denial, and that can be a good thing at times, right? It is designed to help protect us, but in our dysfunction, we've gotten lost in it, right? We're just swimming around in our defense mechanisms. It's I just had to put this one on here. It's wrong thinking to think, well, once I stop drinking, or as long as I'm not using, then everything should be great, right? And that can be a lot of our expectations early in recovery. It's like, well, as soon as I can quit the using part, the symptom part, then everything should be wonderful. And it's not unusual to become very disillusioned in early recovery because you're expecting everything to just start falling into place. But I don't understand. I haven't had anything to drink for whatever, 4 months or 60 days or whatever it is, and so life should be better. No. Abstinence just puts us in a position to now dig into all these other things. So what's underneath it? If drinking is the symptom, drinking, using, compulsivity, if that's the symptom, then what's the something else? What are the somethings beneath that? And this is not by any means an exhaustive list, but I think it's a pretty good overview of this whole journey that we've got to undertake. Man, I meant to get some WD-40 because I did a test earlier and I heard the chair squeaking. So just think about this for a minute. Kind of on on an emotional, spiritual level. Just allow yourself to absorb this idea that where you are at today is the culmination of your entire life experience. Everything good, everything bad, but also everything in between. It's not that, well, I've had a lot of bad experiences, but I've had a lot of good experiences. They don't cancel each other out. These characteristics come from the way we respond to particular experiences. So we can even have what we might say a positive experience, but have a wrong response to it. Think, for example, thinking, man, I haven't drank for 60 days, therefore I'm awesome and I got this. And, so you're having a positive experience, but that's wrong thinking. So here we are at this place in our life dealing with the culmination of, just imagine this 55-gallon drum. And every time we've had a life experience, whether it was good or bad, there was some interpretation about it, there was some emotional aspect to it, and it all gets dumped in there. And so we end up in these conditions which lead us to developing defense mechanisms which we hide in, we avoid in, we live in this, we swim around in it. So think about this. We tend to have a distorted view of ourselves, right? And that can go either way. It's shameful, shameless is what it is. It does go both ways. We go from 1 minute having a very low opinion of ourselves to having a superior opinion of ourselves. I got this. I don't need anybody's help. I just need you to get out of my way. I don't really need help. Whatever that is, the shameful part of it, the shameless part of it. A high need to prove our worth, and we do that in a lot of different ways. Codependency can be a part of that. Perfectionism can be a part of that, and that doesn't mean that you necessarily have to be running around like, oh, here, let me do this for you, let me do that for you. It could just be a mindset. If your starting point is a low self-image, then you're going to spend a lot of time trying to prove to yourself that you are good enough. And incidentally, you spend that time also trying to prove to others that you're good enough. And so that's, we become people pleasers. We need the pat on the back. We need that validation. Oh, hey, great job, Bob. And you know that it's there because when we don't get it, we feel less than. Right? So we live this life of extremes where it's like 1 second I feel more than, or I have to perform more than in order to be acceptable. And then the next minute we just feel less than, and the oh well syndrome, and what's it all for, and why should I bother? And we're talking about a lifetime of this, just slowly building. We're by this time, we're on a very fragile foundation. It's a house of cards. We get halfway through this list, and it's no wonder why we drink and use, right? This is how we cope. Undealt with pain, a life of extremes, which is what I kind of already touched on, just having an all or nothing attitude, repressed anger, and yes, it's there, intimacy issues, and that doesn't necessarily apply to romantic relationships. We have a really hard time being vulnerable and allowing people in to see the real us, right? We tend to create an image that we want everyone else to believe we are. And that's one of the reasons why we can be so anxious and restless around like strange groups of people, because we're scared to death that they see us the way we see us, which isn't the case. Everyone that tends to get to know us sees something in a much deeper quality, but we're so afraid they're going to see us the way we see us. I mean, think about the sickness of that for a minute. I'm so afraid. That's why we fear judgment. We also fear conflict. So we become yes men, so to speak. We become doormats, right? We tend to lack assertiveness, but then there's a big difference between assertive and aggressive. So we tend to put ourselves in positions to be hurt, and then continue to be hurt, and continue to be hurt, and then we take it, and then we'll explode later. Usually apart from the situation. We lack assertive skills or assertiveness skills. A fear of abandonment, a fear of rejection, and perfectionism. That's in order for me to feel like I'm just an acceptable human being, I have to always perform at this ridiculous level, this unrealistic standard. Man, talk about insanity. And workaholism is all a part of that. It's part of the shameful, shameless dynamic. We can just get lost in busyness. That doesn't mean, you necessarily work your job 18 hours a day, but workaholism is just, you would rather be busy, 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 doing, going. And we can do that for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years and never really discover who we are, who we are ourselves. Because we get so busy running from our defects. But we don't see it that way, right? We're in survival mode, really, is what it is. So at a very early age, we start to develop defense mechanisms, which are good, can be good, if we can learn to understand what their design is for and then apply them in our own life with moderation. And so the first one is denial. And they're not in necessarily any kind of order, but denial is definitely probably our biggest one. Denial can be anything from just flat out, it's not me, it's you. I don't have a problem. You just need to get off my back. Black, white, just complete opposites. But where we tend to swim around in the most is minimizing, which is we don't understand or we won't accept the seriousness of whatever we're dealing with, right? So it might be, let's just use the compulsion for a minute. So we'll take the actual, like, say, drinking behavior. Okay, yeah, I recognize that I am drinking a lot, but I still have my house, so it's not that big a deal. Or I recognize, I'm probably partying a little too much, but it's not like I've lost my job or anything. Well, now apply that across the board in your life. It can be everything from, man, I really need to start getting honest with myself, and I really need to start taking a look at some things. Minimizing is really there's really nothing to look at here. If I can just quit drinking, then I'll be fine. If you can just teach me how to not drink today, then I'll be okay. Which is a complete avoidance of the seriousness of what we've been dealing with. And what we've been dealing with is over here. Think about, make that correlation as we go through every one of these defense mechanisms. Keep comparing it to what you're protecting or what you're defending with your defense mechanisms. This is what we're covering up. And that's why I called it, the grand cover-up. It just sounded so dramatic. But it is. It's killing us. Projection is a big one, and that's kind of like it sounds. But this is one, I know I struggled with this one. Maybe because it has the word blame in it. Nobody wants to, because we all know somebody who blames a lot, and it's like, oh God, they just can't take responsibility, and they're always blaming everything, and I don't want to be that guy, so we'll go the opposite extreme when it comes to ourselves and just say, oh no, I don't ever blame anything. But in reality, we've got to really get honest with ourselves, because we do. We can come up with all kinds of things to blame, even if it's just with yourself, right? The excuses that you give to yourself to say whatever, not accomplish something. Something that you've been putting off forever and ever, and you keep procrastinating it. And in order to feel good about that, you've got to give yourself an excuse. So we might say, I know I'm supposed to be, I've been meaning to wash the car, but it's probably going to rain tomorrow anyway. And then a week goes by, and now, I know I was going to wash the car, but it was about to rain. But even though it didn't rain, and the bottom line is as time goes by, we still haven't accomplished the tasks. We can blame other things versus just accepting whatever that responsibility is. And we were talking about this a little bit yesterday. I think the primary reason of that is because we don't understand the value of it, of accomplishment. And it doesn't have to be a major accomplishment. I mean, consistently moving through life, consistently accomplishing responsibility after responsibility after responsibility. And and that includes everything. That means you have a responsibility to have fun. You have a personal responsibility, for mental health. We have a personal responsibility to take breaks, to rest, to get good sleep, to eat right, to it doesn't have to be some major, I've got to work, 12 hours today and nonstop, and I don't get any breaks, and then I've got to pay this bill and I got to pay that bill. Those are kind of obvious responsibilities. But that's what I mean when I say we don't really understand the value of just consistently living up to our personal responsibilities, because we're not even sure what they all are. It's like basic things. And so, again, we use it to cover these things up so we don't have to feel bad. But it didn't work because we do feel bad. That's why we drink, and that's why we use, and that's why we whatever the compulsion is. And then this one goes well with number 2, rationalization. But a good way to say that is rationalizing is just us coming up with really good sounding excuses for a bad decision, right? And it doesn't even have to be a bad decision. It just might not be. It might be a minimizing, kind of a half measures decision. Whatever it is, it's helping us to avoid the responsibility of whatever is at play. And we are masters of rationalizing. Let's go back to the drinking. I only drink. At least I only drank 2 this week. Or if I'll just drink on Saturdays, and then I won't drink anything past 3 on Sunday, and then that way I'll be able to get to work. And okay, so that's a drinking example. Now think about spread it throughout your whole life. All the decisions we make. There's I don't know about the decision making, but there's we just had it on the board yesterday. There's 88,000 seconds. No, it's got to be more than that. Anyway, it was 4,400. I'm screwing it up. Anyway, let's just take the 24 hours in a day, because that's a lot. I was trying to get really detailed with it. Do you remember that, Eric? We've looked that up so many times. How many seconds are in a day?
It sounded almost right. I'll look it up
It's
for
like
you.
80-something thousand.
Yeah. 88,400 or something like that.
86,400.
Okay, 86,400 seconds every day. Okay, so think about your life in that context. There's 88,000 seconds every day. What are you doing with them? And that's not to give anybody a brain aneurysm and you go, oh my God, I'm not doing enough, right? Because that would be our first tendency. Oh my God, I'm wasting so many seconds. But that's kind of the point in recognizing we can actually develop a system for ourselves for living within these day tight compartments. AA would say 20, 1 day at a time. But there's a lot of wisdom in that, and that's what we miss in these defects, these defense mechanisms that we use and we live in. Everything just seems to be wide open, right? And we operate so much out of our emotion. And if you can get a handle on it and learn how to just live 24 hours at a time, or 88,000 seconds at a time, then all of a sudden life gets so much easier. Doesn't mean you don't plan for after today, but that's the whole point, is you plan and then you live in today. Jesus said tomorrow will take care of itself. But I know for me, in recovery, I could put some things together, when I needed to, but it was always like work related or school related. I didn't live my life like that, right? And so when we learn how to like live our life that way, everything changes, right? You can begin to manage yourself, your own emotions, your own thoughts. The fourth one is withdrawing, and not like detoxing, but literally withdrawing, where we isolate a lot. We avoid opportunities that could have been enjoyable, or they might be enjoyable, right? That's a big one. And so why would anybody do that, right? No, this thing is probably going to be fun. Think about all the times that you have agreed to participate in something that you weren't crazy about it, but you went ahead and did it anyway, and you ended up enjoying it. So it worked out. But there's also so many times where we won't. And so we'll say, no, I'm good. We could be enjoying something, but we won't allow ourselves to enjoy it. That's the defense mechanism. We're protecting ourselves because we have such a fear of conflict and intimacy and abandonment, and we're scared to death that people are seeing us like we see us, and we have repressed anger, and we have an all or nothing mindset, and so forth and so on. And so we cherry pick to protect ourselves. That's why the healing process is so critical, because the more we recognize these things about ourselves and we allow ourselves to heal, then this stuff pretty much goes away. You're no longer so focused on self, how I feel, what I want, what I wish I didn't have to do, what I wish I could do, what I wish I could have. Why isn't this happening for me? When will this happen for me? We can be very self-focused in our thinking. And that's because we're in self-protection mode. And remember, it got developed a long time ago, so it's not going to just go away without work. The fifth one is displacement, and that's actually a good description. Directing feelings towards something other than. So it could be anything from you upset about something at work, and then you go home and you just dump your bad mood off on everybody at home. You've displaced your emotions. And we can live a lifetime like that. And because we don't know how to deal with the difficulty, so the boss will just always be the boss, or whatever it is, whatever experience. It doesn't have to be a work experience. It could be anything. But we'll take one experience and have some negative emotions surrounding that. And because we're not really sure how to deal in that situation, we'll just take it and we'll go drop it off somewhere where we're more comfortable. It's been said, in recovery that the people that we love the most are the ones that we hurt the most. And it's a very true statement, I think. When was the last time you got like really angry at a complete stranger? Right? We can have little, whatever inconveniences as we move around our day, and some guy bumps you as you're walking into the convenience store or something like that, and we have a lot of grace when we're dealing with strangers. But when we're dealing with the people that are closest to us, we can just snap on a dime. And that's because there's a familiarity there. We feel safe in that environment. We know that we can be vulnerable. We can show all of our defects, and we still have that situation. We're not really risking anything. And so that's an important thing to think about, because so much of our conflict within the people that we love the most, a lot of that is displacement. Right? We just take stuff from the world and we bring it to the people we love the most. Displacement is a big one, even though you may not hear it often, It's huge. And kind of in line with that, introjection is the defense mechanism where we just take blame for everything, right? It's always my fault. It was never going to work out because I was involved. I'm the reason that everybody's food was cold. I'm the reason that we're running late. I'm the reason. And you don't even have to say that out loud. You just may think it. You're just constantly blaming yourself every time something. And here's the kicker, it doesn't even have to go wrong. It just wasn't up to what you thought it should be up to, some level of standard, and then we'll just take all the blame. Well, yeah, oh no, everybody loved the thing. Yeah, but there was this thing and there was this other thing, and it's just, nothing's ever enough. We kind of just live in I'm at fault for everybody around me. That's not healthy, obviously. But we also tend to counter that, with the opposite extreme, where nothing's ever my fault, right? It's always somebody else's fault. What we want to do is, on this journey, is we want to learn how to be in the middle of the road. We want to kind of learn how to move past either this need to be superhuman or this lie that we might be subhuman, and just learn how to be human. The middle of the road, make some mistakes. Sometimes I mess things up. Sometimes I do really well. There's a balance there. And when you start seeking that balance, you'll find it. And then most of these defects just go away. Overcompensate, which is perfectionism. That's what we're doing when we're in perfectionism. We overcompensate in all kinds of different ways, but just generally speaking, it's a mindset, if nothing else. We're constantly overcompensating in our mind by just telling ourselves, in order for me to be worthy, let's say this is average. This is where the average person lives. In order for me just to be an acceptable human being today, I have to perform at this level. And of course, there's no true measuring stick. It's dictated by your feelings. It's dictated by your ideas. So it's kind of a misnomer. We're not really talking about perfection. Perfectionism is a defect. It's this idea that unless my experience is this, which means this person showed up on time, this person, dressed appropriately, this person didn't tell those stupid jokes, this other person, and we have this idea in our mind on how we expect our experience to be, which is extremely unrealistic because all of that's based on externals. It's always based on the part of our situation we have no control over. And of course, the thing that gets left in that scenario is the one thing we could have been controlling, and that was us. So overcompensating is a huge one. And that comes from childhood. That comes from a lot of trauma, the need to feel good enough. And so we build on that, and we build on that, and we build on that. And before long, you're 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, and you finally come to realize that you've been enough this whole time. You've just been believing the lie. That's a huge one. In fact, next week, I'll give you a teaser. Next week, we're going to actually do all of, we're going to get deeper into perfectionism and personalization. Okay, number 9, humor. That's a good one. Humor's a good thing. But it becomes a defense mechanism when we use it inappropriately. Sarcasm can be a defense mechanism. Sarcasm can be very witty sometimes, right? It can clever, and people appreciate that. But we can also use it when we're covering something up. It can be, you just, oh man, I just got off the phone with the hospital and granddad, passed away. And so, think about that. So you get news like that, someone close to you, you just found out died, and there's always someone that responds with, oh, well, the old geezer had to kick the bucket sometime. Make an attempt at humor when in reality he's covering up the loss, the fear. We were talking about loss last week. And nobody wants to feel that emotional pain, so we can stay in humor, which keeps us in our head. And it prevents us from living or experiencing life from our heart, our emotions. We hold our emotions so close to the vest. It's crazy. And of course, in early recovery, it's what an amazing opportunity. And I think it's harder for guys. I don't know that, but it sure seems like it's harder for men in early recovery to just let go. But it needs to happen. It has to happen. Elitism. Now, this is one I rejected too. Elitism. No, I don't judge people. I don't. It's not about that. It can be, just think about the protection, the self-protection. Okay, so when you encounter a situation where maybe somebody has something that you wish you had, or maybe life seems to work out easier for someone else, or maybe someone's progressing faster than you are, or something like that, we can, instead of dealing with taking a look at ourselves, like, well, maybe I need to get on the ball a little bit. Maybe I need to start doing a little more something. We can just adopt that elitist attitude. Like, well, yeah, but his dad bought that for him. He didn't really work for that. Or I'm not like these people. I never shot heroin, so I'm not, I'm just not as sick as you people. And that's what's happening. It's a defense mechanism. It's not. I mean, it could be interpreted as arrogance, but it's really us trying to protect ourselves. We're trying to disconnect from the pain of it, right? When you, my youngest daughter has been going through this, or I should say, kind of started going through this about a year ago, as all of her high school buddies. Not all of them, but the ones that went on to college and actually finished were starting to graduate. And she quit early and started building her career. And so she was kind of going through a little bit of that, like, oh man, all these friends, and not realizing now they've got all this debt, and she'd already had her career established, and she had so many good things going for her. But it's easy to like in a situation like that, instead of feel guilt or shame, to just say, well, they've got a 4-year degree and they're stupid. It's the dumbest person I ever know or have ever known. Things like that, that's just an example. Those are the stuff, or that's the stuff you guys have to, take it and be willing to explore it and find the similarities of your life experience. And which is, it can be a painful, at times it can be a painful experience, but it's there. What you don't want to do is just approach it with denial and go, oh no, there's nothing to look at here. Of course, we've all got stuff to look at. And it doesn't matter how many times you go through any kind of process of change, whether it's through a recovery process, or just you reach a plateau in your life and you want to make some changes. That's the first thing that anybody needs to do, is take a hard look at themselves. Kind of like what we were just reading. It's okay to look in the mirror, but we can be so afraid to look in the mirror because what we think we're going to see. But that's why we have to maintain this personal honesty with ourselves, because it's never what we think it means, right? We either think whatever the evidence is that we're looking at, we think it either means that I'm awesome or I'm nothing, right? Shameful, shameless perspective. Either it just proves that I'm no good, or it represents to the world that I'm better than, which both of those are defense mechanisms, and they're both lies, right? We're never better than, and we're definitely not less than. So moving through this process is what gets us into an entirely new way of thinking, entirely new way of living, and not just like living in the world, but living in your own skin. That is something that we have not. I should say we have not. Not only have we not perfected that, I don't think a lot of us even come close to it. I know I had no idea how to be in my own skin, and was so desperate for the world to see me in a certain way, and spend a lifetime trying to prove my worth. Just, these things apply to me too. But the more you get honest with yourself and you really start looking at things in an honest way, with a willingness to heal, then everything changes. Everything gets very, maybe not very, but it gets much smoother. And the more we do it, the smoother it gets. The solution. Okay, I left that blank for a reason because I wanted you guys to talk about it. What I already kind of mentioned a couple of my personal ones, but what's so hard about denial? What is so hard about, whatever our experience is, whatever difficulty that we're having, what is so hard about just being honest about what it actually is? Do you recognize how you minimize things? Speak on denial.
What makes it so hard is probably like shame and guilt behind it, like to admit means that I've done something wrong, or that, I have a problem, so, which then, through I uncovered a lot of shame and guilt from everything, so.
And that's a good example of how it snowballs. So it's like, okay, so if I'm honest about my experience, then I'll have to admit that I've done something wrong. But it doesn't stop there.
Right.
It just keeps building because now I'm interpreting what that means. So, okay, so you did something wrong. Woohoo, big deal. Welcome to the world. We go farther and we interpret the fact that we have done something wrong as I'm no good. And that's our disconnect from humanness. We're not really sure how to just be human. In human, of course we're going to make some mistakes. Of course we're going to do some things wrong, and we can admit that. But the whole power behind shame is because you've made a mistake, you are no good. Like as a person, you have no value. And that's always present. Even though you may not recognize it, and you go through periods where you don't recognize your shame, it's there. It's on the other side of the coin. It's just waiting to have just the right experience, and it'll knock you back down. Because it's part of the foundation, right? We have to change the foundation. The minute that we're frustrated, irritable, restless, discontent, making mistakes, something's not happening fast enough, something's not happening the way we wish it was happening, we always point the finger right back at us and go, here, just another example of what a loser I am. And then we can't figure out why we're always drinking and using. Drinking and using is the symptom to cover it up. Because nobody wants to live there. But remember, there's a big difference between shame and guilt. And that's where we have to move towards. Shame is that inherent lie that says that we are only as good as our performance. So if I'm performing at a high level, then I must be at a high level. But if I'm performing at a low level, then I must just be a flat out loser. And I can prove to you that I'm a loser because I've made this mistake and I was 5 minutes late to this other thing and this person's mad at me and this thing's taking too long. And right, we can pick out evidence that proves that we are less than human all the time. But guilt is that God-given radar. The guilt is that internal link that says you have something to look at. You have made a mistake or you have some correction that needs to be made. But you yourself as a human being, your value is not diminished. You are the same person. And that can be very difficult when you've lived a life from the shame perspective. Right? That's what we're going to get into a little bit next Thursday. We will personalize it, and then at this point in the game, after we personalize it, then it just becomes like an affirmation or a reaffirmation, right? It's confirmation. See, I really am a loser. And so we live in a lie. It's just the two-sided lie. We're always lying to ourselves, just waiting for everything to just be wonderful one day. And it's not going to be. You're never gonna perform your way into success, right? You'll never make enough money, fix enough people, change enough external things, have enough different situations, because it's that old saying: wherever we go, there we are. We keep taking us with us, so we're the common denominator. Think about that. In all of our difficulties, in all of our disasters, we are the common denominator. It's not the situation. Yeah, cool. Come on in. Oh, yeah, pull up one of those back chairs. Let's give them a round. No, I'm just joking. So, okay, so pick another one. I want to spend some time on denial because that's such an important one, but pick another one and feel free to share, Cooper, if you want, if anything jumps out at you. Eugene, we're talking about defense mechanisms primarily. Drinking and using is just the symptom, and all the stuff we're covering up. Which one do you relate with the most on these defense mechanisms?
Probably overcompensation or humor.
Yeah, what does that look like?
Well, I typically don't, I try to kind of minimize things by making it kind of funny, or I'll kind of make it into a joke type of thing. Like I'm really have I guess an issue with that. Like there could be something serious going on, and I'm trying to make light of the situation.
Yeah.
Because in reality, I'm like freaking out about the situation.
But that can be a good thing. That can be a healthy way to cope with it, as long as we're also willing to delve into reality. And humor as a negative is that's just where it stops. We just stop with the humor, and we never really look at it in an honest way. So how do you overcompensate?
Overcompensate?
Yeah.
It says there. Perfectionism?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I can. It depends on what context, I guess, I overcompensate. But I guess what would be like the example with perfectionism? Like what would be the kind of like an example of that? Because I'm trying to make a connection there.
Setting your standards at an unrealistic level, and then even though you may accomplish above average, it's still not enough for you. Yeah. You still feel like you failed.
Yeah, that's like story of my life, basically.
Yeah.
I say that.
Oh.
I typically, it's like no matter how much success or people around me are telling me like I'm doing great at this or that. For me, it's like really never enough.
Yeah.
I always kind of am pretty hard on myself. So even though like maybe other people view me like you're doing great, as a matter of fact, I kind of reject when people tell me those things.
Yeah.
I feel uncomfortable because I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think I could do better, or it's got to be perfect, or otherwise I'm a loser.
Man, that's such a classic example. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with thinking, well, I could do better, but not allowing ourselves to connect with other people that are saying they're appreciating you. They're recognizing whatever, your accomplishment or your high level of whatever it is. And that's why we remain disconnected. Because it's not good enough for us until we've, because I can't be well if I'm not up here. Which, we never arrive here, by the way. So it's a flawed formula.
I do sit there sometimes and, I think about that. Because I know that, I always set these, like, really unrealistic expectations or sometimes even realistic ones. And sometimes I'll hit those goals and I'll actually surpass them. And I always tell myself, like, as long as I can do this here, then I'm going to be fine. I'm going to finally feel good about myself. And then once I hit that, it's like, always the next thing.
Yeah.
And it always goes up. And I sit there and I know this.
Mm-hmm.
And it really sucks. It's just like a curse, because with me, like I always had an issue with like my dad. Like I always kind of like wanted my dad's appreciation and just have him just hear like positive words from him.
Yeah.
Positive encouragement, because throughout my childhood I really didn't get much positive encouragement. Like recently, probably like in this past year, he's been when he calls me, he typically says he's proud of me, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because in his eyes, I finally, I'm doing better than he is, and all this and that. So he's like constantly always telling other people, how great I'm doing.
Yeah.
And this and that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Which is, it's like okay, but I almost like am mad about it. It's almost like it took you this long.
Yeah.
To say something good. It's kind of like too late.
Yeah.
For that, because the damage has been done, kind of. So I guess I don't know. I guess I could say like I never really needed his. This whole time, like I need my dad's approval, and maybe I really never did this whole time.
That's basically it's one of our basic needs. Of course, a son needs to feel like the dad is proud of him. So, there's nothing unhealthy with that need. But now that you get it, does it feel kind of like hollow, like it has no value?
Yeah.
Because of that? So it's like, well, now that I can have business success, he'll acknowledge that. But when I was just being me, that wasn't enough. You see it like that?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like I could tell, like when I first got sober, he was definitely happy, a little bit, It was kind of encouraging and all that. Yeah. But I mean, he wasn't as. I don't think he was as proud of that as like this thing.
Yeah.
Business and all that. But again, I try to keep my dad at a distance because I know that anytime I'm around him, it's kind of like not a really healthy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I still kind of am very aware of when I talk to him that I have to make sure that our conversations. Like sometimes he'll say things that are off-brand or something that might be damaging to me. So I'll I try to be kind of vigilant of that.
Like, looks like you've gained a few pounds there, Eugen. like that, like just little things like that hurt. You know, here's the thing. For you, this is where you just allow Dad to be who he is, for whatever reason. Maybe he didn't know how. Maybe he, you don't know, but you're getting it now. He's able to say it now. So just practice letting that be what it is. And of course, I know that's hard to, you not compare it to a lifetime and, where was this when I was 12 and where was this when I did this other thing. And, but that's part of your journey, and eventually you're going to be a dad, and you'll be able to build on that because now you know the value of it.
Hope so.
Yeah. You know the value, just those little bitty things. And I'm in a similar situation, with my kids, and you're like, whatever. You're praising them because they got some ice. Yes, yeah, way to go! I'm so proud of you. You figured out where the glasses are. Just maybe overboard, and so now if I don't say anything, they think they've done something wrong. Anyway. Anybody want to share anything else?
I'd like to say I could
Yes.
really relate to you in that kind of way, because I had never really had a dad in my life since I was, I don't even know, like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And I still don't have a relationship with him because he lives up in Washington and he does his own thing, and I talk to him every now and then, but when I do talk to him, it really isn't that good, like kind of toxic,
Yeah. Yeah. That can be. It's not unusual, in our group of guys. But we were talking about this earlier. I promise you, it's one of those things that's making you a better father. So when it comes to healing, trauma is always a perception anyway. It doesn't mean that maybe we haven't had some real legitimate, serious experiences, but the solution to heal is the same, where we just have to let the other people in our life be who they are. I don't know why this thing, whatever, they viewed this experience the way they did, and just let them be who they are. It's the only way we can move on. It doesn't mean, maybe there's forgiveness that needs to be had. Maybe there's some self-forgiveness. We need to be forgiven ourselves. There's some sort of letting go that needs to take place. And, of course, forgiveness doesn't mean, off the hook. Doesn't mean agreement. It just means you don't get to rent space in my head anymore. It's for us. And then